All right, we'll go ahead and get started now. We'll have I know for me, it's been really hard to focus today. So I'm excited to learn about this incredible topic, supercharge our finances and all that good information. Okay. So thank you all so much for tuning in today. I'm really excited for this office hours to take place, both to learn all about how to exponentially progress towards our finance goals, and also because a core goal of Dreamers and Doers is to amplify you and your journeys. And one of the ways that we achieve this is by facilitating game-changing educational events like this one that gives us all the opportunity to up-level together. So before we officially begin, I want to share a bit of background information on our esteemed expert. Ashley is the author of Financial Adulting, which just came out yesterday.
It actually comes out next week now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, supply chain issues, but I do have a copy.
Amazing. Yeah, not surprised about the supply. I think I just blame everything on my life on supply chain. Like even if it has nothing to do with a physical product, I'm like supply chain.
I'm late. The supply chain impacted my timing. But yes, it comes out March 2nd. So sorry to know.
March 2nd. So 1 week from yesterday. Exciting. Okay, so it is a guide that breaks down everything you need to be a financially confident and conscious adult. She is also a money coach, author of the 30-Day Money Cleanse, and the founder of the Fiscal Femme, a money platform on a mission to end inequality through financial well-being. As a trusted money expert, she has appeared on or been quoted in the Financial Times, the Today Show, CNBC, Forbes, NBC, Glamour, and the New York Times. Ashley has worked in the financial services industry for over 15 years, first as an investment banker, then in corporate finance, and most recently running the Fiscal Femme, of course. She graduated with a bachelor's in finance from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Ashley. Thank you so much for investing your time into the collective in this way. We know how valuable your time is, and we're so excited to learn from you today.
And pun intended, investing. We're going to talk about it.
Exactly. It's perfect.
And I looked over like the list of things that all of you were interested in covering today. And I think a lot of them we cover naturally in what I wanted to talk about. And then I'm happy to open it up to Q&A as well. So can answer all of your questions. Here, let me share some slides. Can you all see these? Awesome. Okay. So what I'd love to cover, you already heard a bit about me. What is a financial adult? Why is it important? How to become your own financial coach to make progress towards your goals exponential. And, money coaches, it's something, I became a money coach in 2012. It was like, people didn't even know what I was, but it's a lot like, well, we'll talk about it. But when we're our own financial coaches, we can help us continue our own progress. Create systems and habits to maintain our progress the whole year. And then we'll talk about 5 actionable steps you can take to be a financially confident and savvy adult this year. And then Q&A. So that's me and my puppy, Simi. My background, Hannah so wonderfully, beautifully, generously introduced me. I studied finance. I worked in finance. I still knew nothing about money. I was just on a podcast right before this, and the question we talked about was something you wish you knew before you started your adulthood journey. And I wish I knew that no one knows anything about money. And not only that does that make us feel bad that we feel like we should know more, but it also has us like make mistakes and take advice from people who sound confident and maybe probably also don't know what they're talking about. So come to find out, at the time I felt very alone, and like something was wrong with me that I didn't know anything about money, this thing I had to deal with almost every single day. But none of us do. And really, everything from when I give a talk and a workshop and I say, raise your hand if you think you should know more about personal finance. It doesn't matter if it's like an MBA cohort, it doesn't matter if I'm speaking at a bank, like usually every single hand goes up. And it even has happened to me when I'm having a coffee with a mentor, right? And they're helping me with my business. At the end, they're like, hey, can we talk about finances? So it's really like, we're all just trying to figure it out. So if you're confused or feel like you should know more, you are not alone. And I think that's one of the very toxic parts of personal finance culture is just like this idea of wanting to keep all of us out of the club, out of understanding, so that we need to pay people to help us. Okay. So, and like Hannah mentioned, Financial Adulting comes out March 2nd. I'm so proud of this book. I'll tell you a little bit more about it at the end. But I interviewed 35. My first book was very much from my perspective, all about budgeting and money mindset. And this covers all the topics like investing, retirement, taxes, estate planning, consumer activism, debt, like we cover it all. And 35 amazing experts helped me do that. So I got to take on more of a journalistic approach and learn from some incredible people. And there's a challenge associated with the launch. So I want to tell you all about that so that you can join in. All right. So what is a financial adult? I think there's this idea, and I've been noticing from my interviews that people think financial adulting is something that you do like right when you enter the workforce, but it really doesn't have an age attached. A lot of us start financial adulting like 10 years after we start our careers, or some of us don't have the privilege of waiting to financial adult till we're an adult. We might have had to start when we're even younger because those were our circumstances. So I would say it's not attached to an age, and it doesn't mean that you know everything or never make mistakes. Like I learned a ton from the people that I interviewed, and I'm still learning. Things are changing. I make mistakes. So it's not about that at all. It's not about this being perfect. The good news and bad news is that the bad news is it's a lifelong journey. So you're never done. Like you've never reached financial adulthood. But it also doesn't have to be hard and doesn't have to be like that have that pressure that you're getting it all right. So a financial adult is 4 things. It's someone who takes small, consistent steps that add up to big results. And what I found with these small steps is that we're a lot more likely to keep up with it, and they're cumulative. So the progress snowballs and grows rather than, we do this with New Year's resolutions too. We think I have to be a whole new person January 2nd or January 1st or whatever it is. And then we think we have to have this huge transformation, and then that sets us up for failure. So just taking these small, consistent steps, and small is relative. And depending on how scary it is or how much you are resisting facing your money, like that might be breaking down a step we talk about even smaller to the point where it feels like, okay, I feel confident that I will take this step. And we kind of know, like when we say, oh, I'll do that, but like deep down, I'm never going to do that. That means we should break it down even further. And I'm happy to help you do that. If there's a step you're interested in taking, definitely let me know if it feels like it's not manageable. And something that I'll have you do as I go through some of the tips and strategies is to think about either one that I'm mentioning or one that you've been meaning to do. And I'm going to ask you to commit to taking an action in the next 48 hours. So as I go through, I'll be thinking like, is there something I've really been meaning to do, or an idea that Ashley shared? Because financial adulting is all about taking action. A financial adult understands what's happening with their money, which sounds very simple, but it's actually very profound to know what is coming in, like what is hitting my bank account, where is that going, how much is going to my expenses, how much is going to my goals. Having a clear picture of that is just life-changing for our peace of mind, for reducing our guilt, for making conscious decisions. So that is something financial adults understand. They feel confident in their financial plans. And for the book launch, I did have a dream team. So I had 360 people who read an advanced copy of the book. And we kind of had a book club going on. And I think being confident in our financial plans doesn't mean that we know exactly how much we'll need for retirement. Yes, we have a ballpark that we're going after, but there's so many things in life that are hard to predict, and that we don't know how long we're going to live, or what inflation will be, or how much our investments will grow. So it's feeling confident that you are moving in the right direction, going to be in the right ballpark for those goals. It doesn't mean like, I know I need this exact dollar to retire and I will achieve it by this date. It's, even though we think money is very like scientific, there's still a lot of art to it. And then a financial adult also understands the critical context of equity and personal finance. And so when you all get my book, you'll find the second chapter is called Equity and Personal Finance. And it's, I think this is a part of the personal finance conversation that is like very much missing. We typically talk about, it's like, we're all going after these goals. We're all starting from the same place, but we're really not. If you are a woman, if you are a person of color, if you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, if you are a person with a disability or a mother, like there are historical things as well as current discrimination that you are dealing with. And so a financial adult recognizes what privilege we have and helps close the gender and wealth gaps, and also understands if we're coming from a place of experiencing systemic oppression and knows that we can't compare ourselves with others, like we're all starting from different places. So I mentioned this. So the book definitely talks about and the racial wealth gap, the gender wealth gap, and then just how intersectionality, when different parts of our identity actually compound and make things even more challenging and are reflected even bigger in our finances. So it's my favorite chapter of the book. And I don't, a lot of people who read my books are not people who buy a ton of personal finance books. So if you've never bought one, or this is a topic where you're like not interested, typically, hopefully you'll still love it. But I do think hopefully that more and more personal finance books will start with this context so that the conversation is a lot more realistic and inclusive. All right, so before we talk about steps, I want to talk about being your own money coach or financial coach. And the reason is that we tend to not really be our biggest cheerleaders when it comes to money. And a lot of times the things that we say to ourselves or our habits tend to actually hold us back from our goals rather than propel us forward. So just to give you some context of like a new role that you can take on, and it's not going to be too much work. I know you all are doing a ton of other things, but a money coach is just like any other coach. But specifically for your money. So they cheerlead you on, they motivate you. And as your own money coach, I think something that's really motivating is staying clear on what you're going after, like what you want, what you're trying to create, what you're saving for. That can really be the motivator. And also noticing how you speak to yourself about money. And let me make sure this was, yeah. So a money coach, something that we don't often do when we notice we make a mistake around money or really anything, there can be a tendency to like feel shame, punish ourselves, think there you go again, you'll never be good at this. But a money coach or someone who is a coach in general would help you and encourage you to learn from your mistakes, because it's having a growth mindset around money. Like we are not born knowing how to budget and there's not people who are born really good at this. It's about learning and growing, and we can get better at it just like any other skill. So kind of looking at the mistakes and saying, okay, that didn't go how I wanted. What can I do next time that I have a higher chance of success, or that might be a better outcome? So trying to get a little bit curious and more of a detective rather than like, oh, you're doing it again, like that negative self-talk. And along the same lines, a money coach should be kind and non-judgmental and not shame you, and provide some accountability, because we need that. If we're going to talk about one of my favorite financial rituals, which is a money party, but having the time just to show up to that, having someone hold us accountable, whether it's ourselves or a money buddy. Like whenever I don't do a lot of one-on-one coaching anymore, but when I did, people, when they got on the phone, were like, I just did my homework, because they know they have to face me. Not that I'm mean or anything, but that they knew that they would be held accountable as soon as we had our call. So accountability is really impactful. And a coach also gives you a plan of action. So you will have your plan of action and do all these things as your own money coach. Okay, so I'm going to give you 5 steps. And like I said, think of if one of these or a part of one of these is something you want to take on in the next 48 hours. And I'll have you all share. I should also be watching our chat too. There it is.
I can keep an eye on the chat for you, Ashley, and I'll just flag if anything comes up for you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And also the link to the book. So I see there, you'll find it there too. And also Financial Adulting book will take you right to the page. Okay, so step 1, know your goals. And like I mentioned, this is a way to increase your motivation and something to come back to again and again. So, and we'll do this in kind of like a workshop format. So I'll also give you time to do a little work on these steps while we're on the call. But take a few minutes to write down the things you want to achieve financially. And these can be like very tangible things like, I want to build a rainy day fund, and I think in more tumultuous times like now, or like honestly, the entire pandemic, rainy day funds have been very front and center because to have that protection of cash has been like provides a lot of peace of mind. So that it could be something super tangible like that, or like pay off my credit card debt, or I want to invest a certain amount a month. Those are all very wonderful goals, but it could also be more feelings based. Like, I just want to feel secure. I want to feel in charge. And then we can back into, what does that actually look like? Is there a financial component of that? Maybe feeling secure is having the rainy day fund, but depending on how we operate, it's so much about what motivates us. And if the feeling of secureness, or for me, like with having a budget, the peace of mind and being able to prioritize things without feeling guilty, if I think of it that way, it feels like so much more of a gift than, oh, I have this much money in my bank account. So think about yourself and what motivates you, and that can help. But sometimes it's fun to just and fun, things to me are really fun, but think about like all the different things that you might want to achieve financially, and we can always narrow them down. But I think it's a cool exercise to take some time and just write them down, like the things that you think you should be doing, the things that you want to be doing. That could be prioritizing like a lifestyle upgrade. It could be a purchase. It could be a trip. It could be, the rainy day fund, the funds for a business, retirement. No wrong answers. And then from there, I recommend choosing 2 to 5 goals to prioritize. And the reason I don't recommend prioritizing 10 goals is that it can feel really unmotivating to put a little bit of money towards a lot of goals. And sometimes it's hard to pick. I didn't even put one because they're big goals like retirement that we're just for a long time going to be putting money aside. But then we can see more meaningful chunks of money going towards those goals and see the progress, and that can be a lot more motivating. And in the book, there's a whole chapter on goals and talking about different goals, recommended priority, and how much for each of the goals. Because I think that's another big question. Like, if I want to go on a travel for half a year, what would that cost? Or how much will it actually cost for me to retire or to buy a home? So that once we know what those goals are and what's most important, we can get really clear on how much and then work backwards based on our plans, how much we can put towards those goals and how long it will take. All right, so step 2, and I've alluded to budgets a few times or financial plans. The word budget, especially like I've gotten a better relationship with the word budget over time, but I think it has such negative connotations. It feels like we're being restricted or it's going to limit our fun, when really creating a budget is such an act of self-love. It is like I call them happiness allocations, because I think the language we use is really important. You'll notice I call budgets happiness allocations. I call like our money meetings a money party. So just flipping, like viewing this as a gift to ourselves rather than how we've been conditioned to view it as like, oh, I'm budgeting, So, and I think a happiness allocation is a much more fitting term. It's just how we're allocating our money in the way that's going to make us the happiest in the short and long term. So that is what a budget is to me. And they do take work. I'm not going to pretend that you could have a budget in 2 minutes, but they're so valuable, and you don't have to start with having the full budget. I think I talk about, let me see. So the budgeting equation, where to start is you want to know what's coming in for your income, like what's actually hitting your bank account, or what's, if you have your own business, what are you able to keep after taxes? A big thing I recommend is if you do have your own business and the money, or you're a freelancer and the taxes aren't being taken out, to have a separate tax fund. And anytime money comes in, transfer a percentage to a tax fund, so that when it comes time to pay taxes, money didn't feel like it was yours and now it's owed to the IRS. But whatever the money is after taxes that you're keeping, then you subtract your expenses and subtract the amount you're putting towards your goals. And if that number is 0 or greater, your budget is workable. And if it's not, if it's negative, you're not alone. That's how most of the equations start. But that just means, given what you want to be spending and putting towards your goals, the current income is not able to cover it. I mentioned the clarity budgets provide, the peace of mind, like how you can, I think when we don't have a plan, so much of our spending can feel guilty. Like, we're not sure if I'm buying this thing, if it's going to take away from my goals, or if I can actually afford it. And so I think what's so great about it is, if you do have room to build in something that's more frivolous or something you just really want, you can know if it's workable. And now you can purchase that thing or prioritize that experience without feeling the guilt. And so talking about breaking things down into a manageable step, like, I am not recommending that you sit down and make a whole budget over the course of an entire day. But a really great place to start is becoming more aware of your spending. So whether that's keeping a money journal, that was something that was so eye-opening to me, and still is sometimes when I need a reset, to have to, just like a food journal, just write things down and it won't be perfect. You'll forget things, no big deal, but just to start getting more conscious of when we're spending, because subscriptions, technology make it really easy not to know. You could also, if it sounds fun or doable to you, just look at a month's worth of expenses and tally them up. If that feels too daunting, to just start with a category that you're curious about, or think you might be spending more than you want to in that category. So like, you could start with looking at dining out or takeout or shopping, or whatever that category that you're curious about is. Just start with one category and look at what that spending was for the last week or the last month. And then another place, so chapter 6 of my book is all about consumer activism. And that is like how to use our money to vote for more of what we want to see in the world. And that could be by giving, that could be by investing in investments that are in ethical companies. It could be in buying our products and services from companies that align with our values. So that is something else that you can do, is just like start by switching over one of your expenses to a woman-owned business or a BIPOC-owned business. And it doesn't have to be, that's a whole nother, and I'm giving a whole workshop on that actually as a pre-order bonus in March, because it's a big conversation, and doing an entire audit of your spending takes time. But again, breaking it down into one step, what can I switch over, could be another step in this area. Okay, so step 3, we're going to go through 5, and then I will, we can talk about anything you all want to talk about. So step 3 is to grow your money. And getting started with investing, this could be another like entire workshop in itself, but I just show this chart because the earlier we start investing, and if we're investing for the long term, the more we're giving our money the chance to grow for us. And another thing, if you think about what I wish I knew, like if I knew how much my money would grow since I graduated college or even high school, like that's even further, I would have wanted to invest more, because just knowing that our money can grow and how it grows and how it's exponential, I think is important, especially when we're building wealth or working to build wealth and close the gaps. So understanding the power of compound interest is important when we're getting started with investing. Our retirement accounts are such a great place to start, whether we have the ability to invest in a company 401k, maybe there's matching. maybe we're investing in our own IRA or in a business, in our own business 401k. If you have a solo 401k or a SEP IRA, but any of these retirement accounts are just such a great place to start because they're tax advantaged. And if you're investing in your company 401k, there's usually limited options. So it makes it a little less daunting to start getting familiar with some investments and to research them. And then I just, something to say about investing is you can definitely like set aside some money to learn how to invest. I think we learn by doing, and just like you would pay for a concert, you could say, you know what, I'm going to take a couple $100 and invest and get used to it and see how it all works. But before prioritizing investing over saving or other goals, you would want to check some boxes to have, minimum rainy day funds, to have some cash on hand. The ideally money we're investing is for the long term, nothing we would need in the short term. And just because if you need it in the short term and the market is down, you're kind of at the mercy of what the market is doing, versus when we invest over the long term, like the last 30, 40, even 20 years, we're earning over 8% on average, adjusting for inflation. So time gives us power to not have to take money out when the market is down. We also would want to pay off high interest debt first before prioritizing a lot of investing, just because that's costing us, like credit cards are costing us more money than we would be earning in the market. And then retirement also to prioritize, just because you can get loans for different things, but retirement is something we cannot get loans with. If we need to finance our retirement, it's usually with credit cards that are high interest. So that is kind of what I think about before meaningfully putting a lot of money towards retirement. I mean, before outside of retirement towards investing. And then just some like common myths about investing. I feel like we often think you have to have a lot of money to invest. You definitely don't. You can do it. There's two chapters of my book on investing. There's the work optional chapter, which is all around retirement, but retirement, like saving for retirement, is really investing for retirement. So there's a lot of basics we cover there. And then chapter 8 is on becoming an investor for good. And so it talks through like how to choose a brokerage account, the ways that we invest. We can invest on our own. We can hire or use a robo-advisor. We can hire a financial advisor. So talking about the qualifications, like there's so many great things to cover, but the truth is if I could boil it down into a chapter or 2 chapters, like you want to be educated, but then we want to take action. Starting is really important because there are thousands of books, entire TV channels. Like we're never going to know everything. So we want to know enough, and then we want to take action, and we learn by doing. So to start investing on your own, you'd want to open a brokerage account, which is essentially an account that allows you to buy and sell investments. And again, there's, you don't need a lot of money to get started, especially if you don't have those boxes checked. You can still put some money aside to practice and get used to it. And get comfortable, so that when you do have those boxes checked, you are ready to go and get your money growing.
A really great question came through the chat. How do you think about rainy day fund in a savings or checking account that is missing out on compound interest?
It's a great question. So I definitely am a fan of having our rainy day funds and all of any separate funds, like the tax fund, the rainy day fund, if you have a travel fund, in a separate online savings account, just because it's out of sight, out of mind. It's not as easy to pull to our checking. They're free and they earn a little more interest than our checking accounts. Rates are very low, so you're not earning a ton. But I would say it's worth missing out on the compound interest to have your rainy day fund in cash, just because the riskiness. Like I think investing has risk, but good risk means good return, but you don't want to take on risks that you don't need to. And so investing money that you could need in an emergency is a risk that you don't want to take, because yes, that potential 8% long-term return and that compound interest is great. But if the market's down 20% when your emergency expense comes up, then you've actually lost 20% of your rainy day fund. And you might not have enough for what you need. So definitely recommend keeping the rainy day fund in an online savings account or in essentially cash so that it's risk-free when you need it. But I know it's painful. It's, we want our money to be growing all the time, all of it. But I promise it's worth it. All right. So I mentioned money parties. I think these are one of the most powerful financial rituals that we can have. I call them a party for a reason. I think that they can be fun, and that means something different for each of us. And you can test things out to see what makes it fun. But for me, I like to be cozy in my pajamas, having a nice beverage, tea, or depending on the time of week, a glass of wine. I have a money party playlist that's fun, songs to pump you up about money. And it's time that we dedicate to deal with our finances, because if we don't set aside the time, we're never going to do anything. We're never going to get to it. And it's just going to hang over our heads and stress us out. So I recommend having time in the calendar every single month to have our money party. You can also reward yourself for having them. So you can make the party itself fun and then do something nice for yourself to reward yourself that you actually took the time to better your financial well-being. And I also recommend having an agenda in advance. Like, okay, I'm going to run through my expenses. That's a big one you always want to do at the money party. What did I spend this month? And also all the little things that kind of pop up throughout the month that you can compartmentalize this, as long as it's not like you're getting hacked or it's something that's very urgent. You can always say, all right, I'm going to deal with that at the money party. I'm going to cancel that subscription. I'm going to close that bank account. That can all happen there. It also is a great time. Like if money is something that's stressful in your relationship, a money party is great to do with your partner. And it also compartmentalizes those conversations. So instead of money popping up and being like kind of like a negative stressor all the time, it's like, okay, we're going to deal with that at the money party. We'll talk through that. And you can really set the stage for a like no judgment, shame-free zone. Versus it's really hard in the day-to-day when it's a stressful moment to kind of keep that vibe for random money conversations. So having the agenda in advance is really helpful. Following through on the rewards is really important. Sometimes people ask if they should have them more often. And I know a lot of people who love to have them more often. I think it's just knowing yourself, and when you have them every week, for example, or every 2 weeks, they're going to be shorter because you'll have less to look at, less expenses to run through, but you're also having them more often. So it's a matter of what works for you. And I do notice that if you do them more frequently, you are more attuned to your spending, and it probably would keep your spending lower to do them more often, just because you're checking in on your goals. Now I'm feeling really motivated for it, rather than, your motivation might wane by the end of the month as you get further away from your numbers. So those are kind of the things to do at your money party. You run your numbers for the month, you plan for the next month, and then the random to-dos that you need to do can also happen. And you can have a business money party as well. Like do the same thing. Your business plan should be mapped out, same as your personal finances. And so you can do it very similarly at the same time or a different time. And something my dream team came up with is we tend to be very clear on the mistakes we make, but your money party is also a really great time to like force yourself to say what you did well that month or that week. Like what was a win that I had this week, or what was a success I had, to start having us look out for those rather than only focusing on what could have been better. All right, so last one, and we're going to a lot of topics, but getting credit score savvy is also part of financial adulting. A great way to start, or a great first step, is just to see where you stand and pull your credit score. The information that fuels or goes into our credit score is information in our credit reports. So there are 3 credit bureaus or credit agencies. There's Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, and they have credit reports on us. And those reports are what is used to determine our credit score. And a large percentage, I think 37% of them, actually have errors. So a really great action step is to go to annualcreditreport.com and pull your free credit reports and check them for errors. You get a free copy of each one once per year. And they're kind of long and they're all different. Some people like to do one a quarter or one every 4 months to kind of check in on their credit every 4 months. But if you find like it's better just to get it done, then I would just read through all three. And then 2 myths that I feel very passionate about debunking. So the first, you can check your credit score as much as you want and it will not negatively affect your credit. So that is just sometimes people are afraid to look at what their score is. They think that might affect it. So that is not true. Where I think it comes from is when you're, let's say, refinancing a loan, or you're trying to open a credit card, a bank might do a hard inquiry, or will most likely do a hard inquiry into your credit. And that will ding your score for a few points usually. So if, let's say you're looking to refinance a student loan or a credit card, you want to do your research without having anyone do a hard inquiry into your score until you find out who you want to go with. And then when you decide and actually go through with the refinancing, they can do the inquiry, because you might be on the cutoff of getting a different interest rate. And sometimes like even a few points could make a difference. So that's where I think it comes from, but you can check your score as much as you want and it will not affect your score. The other more costly and upsetting myth that really upsets me is that keeping a balance on your credit card will improve your score. And we pay such high interest rates to credit cards that I feel like this is a very convenient myth for them, but keeping a balance does not actually improve your score. It costs you an interest. And when you break down what goes into your credit score, having more debt or a higher balance on your credit card actually reduces your score. So this one is completely untrue and costs a lot of money. So those are the myths, but the steps here would be to just see where you stand. You can pull your credit score. Sometimes they're on credit card statements now, or different banks just provide you with them. You can pull your credit score for free at Credit Karma, or Credit Sesame are both free ones where you can get your credit score. And then there's also paid ones like My FICO or Identity IQ is another paid one, I think. All right, so action step. I'm curious. I know we covered a lot of different things, but and feel free to put it in the chat too. But which step will you take in the next 48 hours? And then just check in. Is the step small enough that you'll actually go through with it and do it? And then commit to having some accountability by when you'll take the step. And if there's someone who will hold you accountable, who will you ask to hold you accountable for that step? And I think too, with the holding accountable or having money buddies, it doesn't have to be that you share the details. So if it feels scary to talk about a specific goal, you don't have to share like how much you're saving or how much debt you're paying off or what you're doing at your money party. It's more about the checking in that you took the action. So you don't have to share any information that feels very personal to you with the money buddy. So what steps are you all taking? Money party, awesome. Business money party, great. Money party. All right, everyone's into the money parties. I love it.
I feel like we need to have a D&D money party or something.
Yes, moving rainy day to high yield. Awesome. Yeah, I used to have digital money parties. I had an in-person money party in New York City, which was so fun because it's really fun to do with friends. And then COVID hit, and so I started doing them digitally. But there's something about showing up and doing it together, because then you just know you're going to do it. And if you have questions along the way, then I'm there. So it is great. Getting an accountability buddy, awesome. To party with, amazing. And you're part of your reward. If you do your money parties together, you can do something fun together afterward. All right. So just because I just want to share, so definitely please pre-order my book. Yay. Pre-orders are so important for authors, and they mean a lot, especially women authors. But there's lots of goodies if you do pre-order to incentivize. And one of them, I'm kicking off a financial adulting challenge. the week after the book starts, so that there's time, or launches, so there's time for you to get your book. But there will be a weekly video series, so mini classes that you get each week with an action step to do. So if you're like, okay, cool, I have my money party, but I would love Ashley to give me ideas for other action items that correspond to chapters in the book, you can definitely get that through the challenge. And there'll be a Slack channel for everyone in the challenge where we can talk about our wins and ask questions and cheer each other on. There will be a Kindle version. It doesn't come out until launch day, but there will definitely be a Kindle version. And then the audio, I think, is a month. It comes out a month later. So to pre-order, so when you pre-order the book, you can go to, you can order from anywhere, but then there's a specific link on the website to fill out to get your bonuses. And here's kind of the table of contents for the book. You can see we cover like everything from insurance, buying a home, tax basics, estate planning, credit score, like really all over, really everything I think someone needs to know about money. And my goal for the book is that you read it and you learn a ton. And people who were in the dream team, so they like laughed during it. There were like, I try to make it very fun and funny, but also that it sits on your shelf. And then when it's time, like maybe you don't need life insurance now, but when it's time, you have that and you're able to reference it. Or you decide you're not ready to buy a home. You don't want to buy a home, but someday you might want to, and that's there for you. So I hope it's also a reference for, or when it's time to up your 401k, you can go back to it. And then the other bonuses, there's a credit score guide, a negotiation guide, a first-time homebuyer's guide. My book was double the length it was supposed to be. So all of this came from things I had to cut out of the book because they were going in too much detail. And then there's a checklist that you can print out that goes along with all the chapters of the book. And then I'm also doing the challenge and a Become a Consumer Activist workshop the end of March for anyone who pre-orders. So like I said, on the website, you would pre-order anywhere. And then there's like the link to that form to fill out where you put your order number, and then you'll get signed up to have all your goodies come. All right, that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about anything we talked about or anything different about money, but I'm here.
This was so great. And it makes me wonder, like, why isn't all these important things taught in school? Like, it's like buying a home, retirement, like it just kind of cracks me up. So thank you for the work that you're doing to educate the world, because it's tough stuff.
No, it's ridiculous. And I do think that the younger generation is having it taught more in schools, but it's something we have to, like, actually the first part of the book is about letting go of the shame, because like we're not taught about it. It's too taboo to talk about, yet we have to deal with this thing every single day, almost, right? And it really can, like, being able to quit a job because they're not treating you well, like it just creates so much freedom, or leaving a relationship, or so I do think money is freedom, and it's so important for women to have that.
Definitely. Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I don't know who that was, but feel free to take it away.
It's me. It's Allison. First of all, Ashley, thank you for this. I also love your brand, and it's just really cool to see. Now I'm seeing myself spotlighted, but it's cool to see the way you approached it and how friendly it is. And I have like a million questions for you, but I just wanted to first say thank you. And I appreciate the way that you're coming about it. And just as a total sidebar, but one of my financial goals and just business goals is ultimately opening up a financial literacy school for people of all ages to go to and have experts like you come in and teach different ways of learning about money. So one day there will be a specific school, and I will be calling you. But I feel like as a business owner, there are so many different ways to start. And I am at this point where I'm moving from a solopreneur. I'm a presentation coach. So I use my acting background and teach business professionals, startups, et cetera, how to present using those techniques. And it's been great. The coaching is great. I'm now at capacity. I have big contracts. I'm hiring on other people. And I don't know where to spend my money. Like, how much do I invest in this type of work? Do I hire people for this? Do I save this? So where would you say a starting point would be in that type of situation?
Like deciding where to prioritize your money for growing
Just
your
like,
business.
what do I do? I mean, I don't really know. It's kind of like what question, maybe the better question is, what questions should I be asking to set myself up to make the right decisions?
Yeah. First, congrats. That's incredible.
Oh,
That's like an amazing, like not, I don't even think it's a conundrum, but it's amazing that you have to have this question, right? And you are having to ask this as a reflection of, yeah, your incredible growth. So that is so exciting. Yeah, it's like, it's a tough. And so a big part of it is, I think, deciding how much cash you want to have, like how much protection do I need? And it's very much business related based on your specific business. Like looking back, and it's hard to, there's so much nuance when you're talking about business finances, but looking back on a few years of business, has your business been cyclical? Like, do you need funds for, like, for example, I know a lot of retail businesses make all of their money in December. And so it's really important to have a lot of cash on hand, also to buy inventory for those businesses, to be able to take advantage of that time of year, but then also to fund the lower months. Like, so understanding, and I know it's impossible to ever know, but just understanding what kind of cushion and runway you need to have, especially as you add expenses. And so so that could be something to build up. Like you love having 3 months of expenses. Now your expenses are tripling because now you have employees. So you'll want to like buffer up that business rainy day fund. So just like we have for our personal, that's really important for our business. It also allows us to be more strategic and not feel ever what's the word, the like urgency, like, oh, I got to make money fast and maybe take on like a client that's really annoying or that is going to cause you a ton of grief and slow down your growth because you just need the capital. So I'd say that protecting yourself, and then it's tough too, because I think, sometimes not everything can be tied to looking at your return on investment, but so often, especially in the industry you're in, depending on who you're hiring, like really having clear goals for them that you're tracking, and like okay, great, I'm paying this person this, but this is what they've brought as far as like business growth. So really, I think using the financial part of it, like, to tracking and being strategic, and like you can't know for sure at looking forward, but looking back, like how has the return on investment been on that hire, or having the better website, or whatever it is.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as I said, I have a million questions and I could commandeer the rest of your minutes, but I will yield the floor for my follow-up questions.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Of course.
If anyone has any other questions, feel free to unmute yourself, jump in, or drop in the chat. And if not, Allison, feel free to hop back in with your questions.
I will. Like, be careful with what you wish. I will ask questions.
I mean, no one else is jumping in at this point, so I think you're in the clear if you have another question.
All right. So maybe this is something that other entrepreneurs struggle with, but I have been in a position, I've had 2 startups, success, fail for different reasons. And then now I have my company, which I'm happy is successful, but I've been in the position where I've had a lot of money in my account and then I have no money in my account. And I asked myself, like, where is my money going? And then I realized I was hemorrhaging cash in my other business. And now that I have a high, and then I have a personal injury settlement that's about to come through. So like, I feel a little bit overwhelmed. It's again, a good problem to have, but like, I don't want to be in that position again of being broke. So like because I have this at times all or nothing personality, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs do, is how do I just be careful and not make such big decisions, perhaps when I see a big number relative to how my brain works and what I think is a big number, like for myself. How do I not get overwhelmed by that or make better decisions?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of having buckets in our business account. So essentially, like, so for example, like seeing, it's just like often human nature to see a huge number in your bank account and think that's like all available for you to make a big business investment, for example. But really like 30% of that's for taxes, 30% of that's payroll for 3 months. Like it's helpful to have the money out. So when you're seeing the balance, it doesn't like, what is actually available. So I think that is a helpful thing, because holding it all in our heads just doesn't work. And it's just, yeah, we do funny things. Like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but like I've spent the same money 3 different ways, but you can't, unfortunately, you can only spend it once. So that will kind of hold us accountable for having each dollar have a job. I think also, like, as entrepreneurs, especially as your business grows, like at first, you run your business spreadsheets, and as many hats as you're wearing, like knowing what your expenses are is really important. So actually going in and doing the money party for your business every month, depending on how busy you are, how complicated it gets, like starting to have a team. And that could be as simple as having a bookkeeper go through and hold your expenses and hold you accountable. Like if you want to have this much cash in the bank at all times, like they're like, hey, you're getting close to that. But I would say no matter who you hire, because I think there can be this idea like, I want to hire someone to look at this so I don't have to think about it, is I would say you want them to make your life easier, but you also want to actually be looking at what's happening with your expenses, no matter who's doing it for you, So having like a monthly check-in with them, this is what this is looking like. This was way too high. That I think could be helpful. If you're noticing that like you're too busy and it's just not happening, it's better to have help than to not do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a totally fair point.
Yeah.
And
then they can kind of keep you accountable for those big decisions. Like you don't actually have as much as you think, or yeah.
Yeah. And part of the question is for me is like, how do I know what that number is that I want to have in my account on hand? I mean, personal and business, I don't know what that number is. And as I grow and I discover what profit margins are for different employees, like there are a lot of questions that come with that. So even that main question is something I don't know the answer to.
Right. And I think so you can, like, knowing what your expenses are, right? Then you can come up with a ballpark of, I want to know that I'm set for 3 months or something. That's like a good place to start. But yes, it's totally it's again, a lot more art than science. And there are people who could be in your same type of business and have grown and they could give advice. But yeah, things like sometimes there's big expenses that happen before the growth, and so I think there's a lot of checking in. How do I feel? Oh no, what just happened? How do we prevent that? It's not, I wish I could say if you do 3 months and then take this % of each employee, you're set, but it's definitely also like knowing when you react in your personal comfort level. And some people want like a year of expenses versus some are like, you know what, I think it's really important to invest in this item and I'd rather have fewer months of expenses.
Yeah. Things I have to figure out, but I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the way you think about all of this and the money party and and the way you just put this together. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you all for coming. It was so fun.
Yeah, this was amazing. Yeah, echoing what Allison said, I really like how you approach money and make it like, take the fear away from it, because I know for me, money and other things in general, but you like put them off because it's scary to see where you're at. And so I really appreciate, just like taking pulse of where we're at and then going from there and making it fun from there. Because obviously money is something you have to deal with forever. So
yes,
better to start now than later.
Exactly.